in and surrounding Baltimore. Don't ask him about preseason games, oh no. Stuffing things in Griffin Basso. Despite it being on the internet, he can call it what he wants, so Glenn Clark Radio. Glenn Clark Radio. Glenn Clark Radio. Duke sucks.
Because that was a long game, so you don't know exactly what yard line you. So it's got to be quick. The win probability, it might have been. I'm gonna say it might have been maybe 2% or 1%, something like that, going for it. And you got to make the decision very quickly, and you got to say, hey, do we have a call that we really like? Do we have a call we love here? Because you got to send the punt team out, or you're going to have a delay game, or you got to send your offense out, or you're not going to get the playoff just that fast. And Lamar was coming off the field at that point. I could see something wasn't quite right, and so you got to get your punt team out there. And that was really it's a fast sequence of events in that moment. But then again, too, I'm not shying away from putting our defense out there. I mean, if you get stopped on 4th and 3, did you think about punting the ball and putting your defense out there and giving them a chance to win the game? I mean, that would have been the next conversation because they'd have been in field goal range already. So I trust our defense, and I'm going to trust our defense this year in a lot of big situations because our defense is going to be really, really good. And I know there's doubt about that right now probably, but I guarantee you our defense is going to play really good football this year.
Yeah, what the line is between trusting your defense and making questionable decisions about whether or not the game should be determined by your defense or by your offense, those are all different questions. Good morning. It is a Tuesday edition of Glenn Clark Radio. That's Ravens coach John Harbaugh from yesterday during his weekly press conference, addressing again the decision to punt the ball on, and we keep referring to it as 4th and 3 because I do think, legally speaking, it was 4th and 3, but it was recorded as 4th and 2, so I don't know, however you want to refer to it, I don't care. And not really giving us any specific answer. He references a couple things in there. He says the win probability difference was 1% to 2%. Well, and this is where, it's easy to say, oh, the win probability difference was 8%. Because both Ben Baldwin, who joined us yesterday, the Computer Cowboy, his model, and the ESPN model, both had the win probability percentage at 8%. To be fair, I don't know what the Ravens use internally. They might have their own probability model, and it might very well be that their probability model only had it as a 1% to 2% difference. So, for what it's worth, he might be right based on the numbers that he was given. I just want to, because I don't really want to continue to harp on this forever. John Harbaugh was asked a little bit more about this particular decision. The question that I really wanted to know was Lamar available for the play? Because to be fair, as I said yesterday, if he wasn't, it changes everything. And he referenced that he was cramping, and we all saw the hit that he took from Ed Oliver on the previous play. He definitely got up limping a little bit. Was he available? He didn't directly address that. That wasn't asked directly. But there were other questions asked about the play and the call that I'm trying to use the answers to all of them to piece together exactly what happened here. So I just want to give you a little bit more. This is from John Harbaugh's press conference yesterday, a little bit more back and forth about the 4th down call.
In hindsight, do you feel like you were aggressive enough?
Well, I mean, the balance is, do I really think we have a really good chance to get it? Because if we get it, we win the game. If we don't get it, they're in field goal range. So I think, as I just explained, all those things that kind of went down in that sequence, you can understand where it's like, what are our chances of getting that right here? I mean, Lamar's coming off the field. Something's not right. It's 4th and 3. Do we have a really good call? And the time clock's ticking down. Do I want to call timeout and burn that timeout? Or do I want to have that timeout? Maybe you burn the timeout right there. In that moment, 4th and 3, put our defense out there, think we can get a stop, get a good punt, pin it down. Do we love the punt? Don't love it, So all the things that happen after that are just things that happen. And you got to do the best you can in a very short period of time. So, no, I don't think you could sit there and say, you can say, well, I should have been more aggressive, but I don't think you can definitively say that's the right thing either. You can't really say that for sure. Because it could have you could make that choice and could easily be having the conversation the other way here. That's just the way it works.
If your gut had told you we have to go for this, would you have had to call a timeout, do you think, because
Yes, I would have definitely had to call a timeout to get the play up and do it. Would have definitely had to. And I'm not saying you couldn't have done that. We could have done that, But in that moment, didn't seem like the right thing.
You mentioned the defense.
There you go. So that, I think, addresses, it doesn't directly answer the question, but I think what it says is Lamar would have been available, but it would have required taking a timeout. As our friend Andrew Stecca points out this morning, well, they had 3 timeouts. They had them. That doesn't work. It doesn't work to just say, well, we can't do this because we would have to take a timeout. Well, you got the timeouts. And again, in one scenario, and I think that's the part that Ben Baldwin point up, if you get it, the win percentage is now 100%. The game is over if you get it. The question, as it was posed by Brian Wacker of the Baltimore Sun, referenced their decision to go for it from, I believe, their own 16-yard line on 4th and 1 against the Chargers last year. I'm pretty sure it was the 16. It was inside the 20, but I think it was the 16. And referenced that, right? Comparison. Now, to be fair, that decision was in the first half. It was late in the first half when they did that, which was, kind of borderline reckless, but it felt like they just needed to get going in that game. Get moving. And it worked, and the Ravens ended up winning that game somewhat comfortably. But it does go back to the incongruence of when to be aggressive, when not to be aggressive. And I don't know that I have the answer to when it's appropriate. The argument would be if I take a timeout, now I only have 2 timeouts. They're already in field goal range. They're going to run 40 seconds off the clock after my 2 timeouts. So they're going to run 50 seconds plus the field goal. They're going to get a minute off the clock here. We're, at best case scenario, getting the ball back with 30. You can hear all of it. You can listen to all of that. And his point about we got to make these decisions quickly is true. But at the end of the day, I think I still want to be the team that says I'm going to determine it. And if I lose the other way, I lose the other way. But what I'm not going to do is lose without Lamar Jackson being the one deciding it. That's me. That's me. It doesn't change my opinion, even if I can be fair that it's not as simplistic as we want to make it out to be. There are conversations to be had. You're already under the 2-minute warning. You only have so many opportunities to stop the clock. If you stop the clock here because you have to in order to get it, you now only have 2 times to stop the clock. The clock is becoming a problem. All of that is true. You are playing it out now to, I might be down under 30 seconds by the time I get the ball back. Now, you do have Lamar Jackson. You also have a rookie kicker you don't trust. This is one thing that maybe 2 years ago you got Justin Tucker. You can kick a 60-plus yarder and feel confident about it. It's a very complicated conversation. But at the end of the day, I'm not going to waver. I still want to be that team. It is a Tuesday edition of Glenn Clark Radio. I don't know. This one's... Don says John Harbaugh is a liar. I don't know. What do you mean he's a liar? What was he lying about? I disagree. All good. Think he made the wrong decision. All good. But I don't know what you think he's lying about.
Isn't it obvious?
What?
He's lying.
About what?
Well, I mean, just about knowing football.
Oh, okay. He doesn't. He doesn't know
Don's
ball.
Making a good point.
He just
Don's
doesn't.
Making a good
You don't
point.
know ball.
You don't.
I just don't know what you think he's lying about. I mean, And Andrew Secca says that technically it was 2.6 yards on the 4th and to go. So whether you want to call that 4th and 2, whether you want to call that 4th and 3, I don't know what the law is. Like, I don't know what they tell stat keepers. Here's why you recorded as 4th and 2 versus
2.5, you think they definitely go for it?
I don't. Yeah, exactly right. It was that 1 inch. Or I guess if it's 2.6, if it's it'd be more like 1 point something inches. I don't know, man. I don't know. We got a lot to do on a Tuesday edition of the program. Today's show is brought to you by Live Casino and Hotel Maryland, the best place to watch every game, every big event, and like fight night coming up this Saturday night.
Big one.
You're thinking about the UFC fights. Everybody else, of course, is thinking about Canelo.
Yeah, they're in San Antonio this weekend. UFC Noche.
Yeah, that's what you're excited about. I know you.
It's
I know
a
you.
really bad card this week.
Diego Lopez.
Yep, Diego Lopes.
Lopes, sure.
I think it is Lopez, but
all right.
People call him Lopes, and he doesn't correct
Whatever.
him. So.
Yeah, but there's another fight, Canelo and Crawford. Best place for fight night is Inside Sports and Social at Live Casino and Hotel Maryland. Our next guest was in town in Orchard Park on Saturday night and wrote about the Ravens collapse. He wrote a little bit more about the Bills side of things for USA Today. Longtime NFL writer. We welcome Jarrett Bell back to the program. Good morning, Jarrett. It's as you actually wrote about later. You are right. This is a thing the Ravens starting to become known for, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a shame too because it's happened like so many times and they just haven't been able to fix it, man, when they really need it. So it's a different identity for this team and the defense. You know, you think back to the glory years, you know, with Ray and the group, and it's like, oh man, no way that you'd see what's gone on multiple times with the Ravens in terms of blowing these leads.
I think as we try to figure out what actually matters and how we actually dissect this, Jarrett, let me start with that because I think the play of the defense is the most alarming because as the season went on a year ago, of course, the Ravens defense was awful to start the year, but they righted the ship and they were arguably the best defense in football in the second half. This part of it, how much of it is one game against Josh Allen and they're in 2-minute mode for the entirety of the second half and you just were unlucky versus this is a prolonged problem for the Ravens and it might not just be a one-game story. They just might not have the playmakers they need to have defensively in order to win championships.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's a mouthful and it's all fair. It's all fair game because you know, that was what the Ravens were known for so long was just, you know, really having, you know, a knockout defense. And, you know, to your point, you know, how it evolved last year is, you know, it's valid, but it's like, I don't know, can you trust them? I think that's the thing. Before you could always look at the Baltimore defense for years, you know, and just kind of know that you were getting, you know, a solid product, right? And that just hadn't been the case. So is that players? Is it schemes? Probably a combination of any and all. I mean, the game has evolved, obviously, from where it was, you know, several years ago, just in terms of, you know, just kind of the NFL brand of football. But all that to say, yeah, it seems like it's really regressed from where it used to be, obviously.
It definitely has regressed from where it used to be. And I think this is I think the Ravens have a defense that's capable of being good, Jared. And I think we saw that last season. But even last season, when you got to the playoffs and you needed plays made against the Buffalo Bills and there weren't plays to be made. And I think that's the problem that I'm coming up with is I think right now they have a good defense. They just don't have a playmaking defense. They don't have a defense that when like the chips are down, there's someone that you trust as an ass kicker to go just win and end things. And to your point, that to me is what's to take nothing away from Kyle Hamilton or Marlon Humphrey. These are good football players, but right. Who's winning? Who's going and just taking it upon themselves to say, I'm making the play and the game is ending here, and that's the thing that it just seems like this group has been missing.
Yeah, yeah. It's like, where's the, the real leadership in terms of, and not just talking about um, leadership in theory, talking about leadership in action, right? So yeah, I don't know. You gotta get off the field, and I also think too that you have to have the confidence to be able to do what you need to do at the time that you need to do it, and that happens from results, right? I mean, it's just kind of like when you do it over and over again, or not, then that's what you are. So that's one of the problems with the Ravens right now. It's just not really being able to look at them and on defense, especially to close out these games.
Jarrett Bell, USA Today, with us here on GCR. Jarrett, the fact that this continues to happen, and John Harbaugh pointed out, I've pointed out a few times, one of the reasons why all of the numbers that we see, right, like the Ravens have blown more fourth quarter leads than any team in the NFL. Well, a lot of teams in the NFL don't have many fourth quarter leads, right? Like we do have to acknowledge there's some amount of process versus result to that, but it doesn't change the fact that this has happened a number of times. And I wonder if at some point, does it just sort of become part of the identity? Like, do the Ravens go through this where one thing goes wrong in the fourth quarter and there's a snowball effect that they just can't stop because it's almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy?
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things, and that's what I mentioned a minute ago, where it comes down to, having the confidence to be able to do it through your results. That's true. But, I think when you look at some of the great teams over history, and that's the standard here. We're talking about, can you win a championship or not, right? I mean, that's what that's what the Ravens want, and that they've done it twice, obviously, in their history. So it's not far-fetched to think that it can happen again. But for it to happen, you've got to be able to, obviously play complementary football. Your offense still has to do things as well to help the defense, and the defense can do things to help all of that, right? But I think the bottom line when it comes to defense and championship defense is like, when you get a lead, can you trust that your defense is going to hold that lead, right? And that's what it really comes down to. True, the offense has its part to do. You've got to convert to keep drives alive and those things as well when you're talking about the collapses that we're talking about. But when you're just talking about a championship defense and, defense wins championships, let me throw that cliche out there. We can't have a segment without saying that, right? But point being, when you get a lead, can you trust your defense to hold it and to not give it up? I think that's the simple thing that you want to see if you're talking about, the Ravens going to that next championship level again.
How much is it fair to put these things on John Harbaugh, Jarrett? Because, look, the Ravens aren't firing John Harbaugh today, right? Like, that's not happening. It's not happening this season. I don't know what happens at the end of the year. We'll see. But there will be people that would point out, well, there's one thing that continues. Defensive players change, coordinators change. There's one constant, and it keeps happening. And on Sunday, there's questions about should he have gone for it, 4th and 3 from his own 36-yard line. Like, there's plenty of questions to be had. How much of the continuance of these things occurring falls on the head coach?
Well, I think it's fair to ask those questions just because the buck stops with somebody, right? And so, and even when you get to the point in saying, well, who's the coordinator and so on and so forth, you go back to who you bring in on your staff or who you keep and how you keep, all those dynamics come into play. And I don't know enough about all of the intricacies of all those things except to say that that's all under his watch, right? And so there has to be accountability somewhere, somehow. There are a lot of factors that go into it, obviously, but it's fair game to question that, because he is the constant. And you probably can't sit here right now and say, okay, this guy is a better coach, or this is someone we can get that can be a better coach. So let's not go there right now. But again, when you talk about the questions of whether or not they're fair to ask about, I think that's all, in the discussion. Now, it's in terms of that 4th and 3, or would you say it was 4th and 2.8?
Yeah,
or
4th and
whatever it was?
2.6 apparently. Yes, correct.
The other night, I've been going back and forth on it, right? Because on one hand, you say, 3 yards, you should be able to get it with Lamar, and there's all sorts of things you could do. And what are the odds that Lamar can't get you 3 yards, right? And that's true. But if you don't make it, and the field position being what it was, are you giving up? I think the thing to remember is that, you punt them way down the field, you flip that field, and I think your chances are better from what they did. I mean, so I don't, even though I think Lamar can get 3 yards just leaning forward most of the time, it doesn't happen all the time. It's not a fail, it's not a guarantee on that. But if you're able to flip the field the way that they were able to do it, and Buffalo starting at the 20-yard line, and I know Josh Allen was hot and so on and so forth, but you got to be able to get a stop. You just can't let a team, and this gets back to the defense, you just can't let somebody march down the field on you the way that Josh Allen was able to do it. So I don't know if I've given you any answer to that.
No, I mean,
except to say I think the decision was good to punt, basically.
I hear you. You know, it's funny, Jarrett. I'm almost at a place where the rules are just so beneficial to offense, and now you got a team that's got 4 downs on top of it, right? Like, you're giving Josh Allen 4 downs, right? Like, it's unquestionable 4-down territory. I just don't think that's a good place to be ever at this point. Even for good defenses, I think that's tough anymore. And so I don't know. I'm really struggling with that, and I get why it was a difficult decision. I don't think it's as easy as some of us are trying to make it out to be. I just think that ultimately you're going to rather have your quarterback. The way the league has done this, it is better for you to do things offensively than it is for you to do things defensively. It's not a knock on your defense. It's the game that they want. Like, they want it to benefit offenses. And so I don't know, man. That's just I continue to struggle with that, but I understand the thought. Let me go this.
Hey, Glenn. We ask ourselves, what would Dan Campbell do, right?
I mean, and by the way,
know what he would have done.
Oh, 100%. He's going. Like, let's go. Are we overreacting in Baltimore? Is the what happened in the past? Is this really just one game against a really good team, and we know the Ravens are still good, and they're going to be better than this, and this happens? Or does the connective tissue of all of these fourth quarter issues give us reason to think that this might be why this team just isn't going to get over the hump?
Yeah, I don't think you can ignore it. I really don't. Yeah, it's one game, but these games matter. And we could be sitting here in January, and that one game makes the difference, to whether or not you're hosting a game in the playoffs, right, or not. So they matter from that standpoint. But to the real discussion is, can you have faith? Can you trust this team when you really need to trust them? And I say they've got to prove that, right? Now, you can, if they go and get into January and they're in the championship game and they go to the Super Bowl, we can look back then and say, okay, it wasn't that big of a deal. But until that happens, it's on the table, and it is part of their identity right now, because it's happened, over the past couple years, just, multiple times. And so, I think it's something that they need to correct. I mean, obviously they need to correct it, but in terms of whether it should be in the conversation or not, no, it should be, because this is what's happened, and it's happened over and over again. And until you are able to do it, then it's there. Now, is this a psychological thing for this team? Maybe there's some of that as well. So maybe the next time they get into a situation where it's 14 points in the fourth quarter and there's, it's the dynamics are similar, do they fold up or not? I mean, do they get to a point, and I'm talking about the players and the coaches themselves, where, oh boy, here it goes again. I mean, yeah, I don't know if the psychology is part of it, but you can't dispute it right now.
He is Jarrett Bell, and you can read a lot of stuff that he wrote from Ravens Bills this week right now by going to usatoday.com. And, of course, at Jarrett Bell on Twitter is how you follow him. Jarrett, is there anything else we can plug for you, man?
That's it right now, man. It's like, let's go on to week 2.
Yeah.
But, no, I appreciate it.
Always.
And, yeah, we'll see how this thing flows for them. But, yeah. It's, hey, I feel for the Baltimore fans right now. That's for sure. Because
it's very frustrating.
Yeah, it looked like they could do no wrong. So
Jarrett,
until they could.
Yep, 100%. Oh boy, they look like machines. Like 2 minutes earlier, like this might be the best performance we've seen. Boy, we'll be in touch. I always appreciate you, my friend. Thank you for taking the time for us this morning, as always.
All right, man. Okay, take care, man.
Jarrett Bell, longtime NFL writer for USA Today, with us here on GCR. There's a lot of thoughts in there, and I think that's what we're all dealing with. I think we're dealing with the line between whether this is just one game and the data people always tell you, nothing about this is predictive. That's why I brought it up with Ben Baldwin yesterday. Like, at some point, do we have to acknowledge that maybe there is something predictive about this? Because they would tell you these individual game circumstances, they're not predictive. What's predictive is how good you are. What's predictive is what you do from play to play throughout the course of a game. And unique, specific circumstances and blowing double-digit fourth-quarter leads, that's not predictive. But is it? And I think that's the feeling that we're having. And I don't have the correct answer. I can't tell you that it is. I can't tell you that this is the story of the Baltimore Ravens. Or it's the story of John Harbaugh, or it's the story of Lamar Jackson, or whatever. I can't tell you that. And we all want to know that because it would make it easier, right? Then we don't have to bother to watch. If we know the Ravens are just going to blow a fourth-quarter lead in the playoffs, then why bother watching? Why bother investing, spending money? But you don't know that. Right now we know it's happened in the past, and it's happened yesterday. But we can't say definitively what's going to happen moving forward. Today's show is also brought to you by Game Day Men's Health in Owings Mills, Frederick, and Columbia. I've been talking about Game Day for a long time. I thought I was low T. Turns out I've got lots of T. But I am feeling sluggish and run down, and I don't feel the same in my 40s as I felt in my 20s. So I got a complimentary testosterone test from Game Day Men's Health. They told me, you're good. But I still feel the way that I feel. They said, well, have you considered peptide treatment and peptide proteins? And I said, I've never even heard of that. What does it do for me? And the answer is, it means that in the morning, when everybody else wakes up and makes these noises, I'm not doing that any longer. I just wake up and get on with my day. And whether you're dealing with that, whether you're dealing with stubborn belly fat, maybe performance issues in the bedroom, they've got you covered. GameDayMen'sHealth.com is the website. Give them a call. 443-264-4454 in Owings Mills, 443-266-3505 in Columbia, 240-931-3717 in Frederick. He's going to be joining us every Tuesday throughout the season. He is PressBox Ravens beat writer Bo Smolka, and he's with us this morning here on GCR. Bo, it's Glenn. I'm struggling with this because it's like a big picture concept, but how predictive is this? Is this just in the Ravens' DNA that in big games against good opponents, they are going to blow leads in the fourth quarter? Is it just that it happens to them more because they tend to get more big leads and perhaps we overreact. Like, how do we have an adult conversation about this issue?
Glenn, it's a good question, and I don't know the answer, and the problem is they don't either. And they're right. I mean, and John Harbaugh said it again yesterday. We have a lot of leads in the fourth quarter, which is actually a very good thing to do. You'd rather be ahead than behind in the fourth quarter. But it just, things have happened, and it's been mistakes on their part. And will it always happen? You like to think it won't always happen, but it is this kind of albatross hanging over them that it just continues to happen. And they're not always the same situations, but is it in their DNA that this would be this way? You hope not, but it's kind of a, like I said, it's just hanging over them, and there's no way they can kind of clear that until they prove otherwise, and they haven't done that, and that's on them to do it.
But I don't think this defense is as bad as they looked on Sunday, right? Like, I don't believe that. I think they have too many nice pieces, too many good pieces. I think they'll figure it out. Josh Allen is special, the whole deal. But I think what I'm continuing to struggle with is something that I brought up before, that for as much good as they have defensively, what continues to be apparent to me is the lack of game-changing playmaker. And I think you can say Kyle Hamilton is that guy, and at times we certainly see it. He did, have the interception on the 2-point conversion, although he tried to screw it up afterwards. But who else is a game-changing playmaker when the chips are down on this defense? And I think that's the part that's becoming more and more alarming, that as much as they've invested and who is proving to be that guy that's going to make the difference when they need it?
Well, I mean, that's the question. It is. I mean, and let's face it. And I asked John about this yesterday. I mean, we spent 4 to 6 months, myself included, talking about how deep and how strong this defense was. And so that just wasn't supposed to happen to them, to give up 251 yards passing in the fourth quarter to anyone. And to their credit, they outplayed that Bills team for 3 quarters. But again, even, I know a lot of people want to say, well, they should have gone for it on 4th and 3. And John Harbaugh said, it was 4th and 3. Lamar Jackson was cramping up. He didn't look right coming off the field after 3rd down. We punted it away. And this is a defense that's supposed to be able to stop a team in this situation. This is what we've heard all summer. They've got 5 first-round picks in the secondary. They're good at all. They got Pro Bowlers at all 3 levels. They should be able to hold any team from getting a field goal in that situation if they are as good as we've been led to believe they are. Yes, they're probably better than they were in that game, and definitely better they were in that fourth quarter. To your point, though, I mean, they had a couple chances in this game. Malachi Starks nearly had an interception he couldn't come up with. Awuzie nearly had an interception he could come up with. The pass rush just wasn't there. They didn't have an impact play in like a strip sack or anything like that. And those are the kind of things they need to get. John Harbaugh specifically mentioned that the pass rush lanes, he called them, they need to be better. And that was, I think, not just the edge rushers, but the way they want to rush the quarterback wasn't good enough. And Josh Allen's one of the hardest guys to sack anyway, but they obviously didn't make enough of an impact. And John said that was, he thought, the number one thing was they let Josh Allen extend plays too long. So, yeah, they have to have that. They thought they were getting that when they signed Jair Alexander as a part of that. They still think they have that with Odafe Owe, who is kind of non-existent in this game. But you're right. I mean, these are the things they have to do. They've talked all summer about the importance of getting turnovers on defense. Those are the kinds of plays that those players have to make. And they're going to need them, and who's going to make them, we'll see. But you're right that I think they're better. They're a better defense than they showed, but those are the plays that have to be made.
Bo Smolka, PressBox Ravens beat writer, with us on GCR. Bo, you reference John talking about the 4th down decision. I will tell you that not in hindsight, in the moment, I thought that they should probably be going for it there. I do acknowledge that it's more – it is not nearly as cut and dry as everyone makes it out to be, that given Lamar Jackson did take a lick there and came up a bit limp, like, you're going to have to take a timeout, as John Harbaugh alluded to. Now, if you do that, you only have 2 timeouts left. They're getting the ball back already in field goal range if you fail. I get that it's more complicated than just saying you always got to go for it. I understand that. But I do think the questions about the congruence of the Ravens' aggressiveness or lack of aggressiveness in recent years are fair, and how they kind of went from being the team that was always going to be aggressive in 2019 to a couple years ago being 32nd in fourth down aggressiveness in the NFL. I think it's fair. And then a year ago, going for it in 4th and 1 from your own 16. I think it's fair to question why and when and what the thought process is, and is it better for your identity to just be the team that's aggressive or not?
Yeah, I mean, and it sounds as if, Lamar Jackson coming off the field and quote, not looking right, or however John described it, was a factor in that decision making. But I also think that, and so you're right. I mean, yeah, they went for it on 4th and 1 at their own 15 or whatever against the Chargers. And John Harbaugh over his career has generally been aggressive. Now, if it was 4th and 1 versus 4th and 3, that might have been a different question. Again, and it's 4th and 3 with your quarterback who doesn't quite look right. And as he said, you've got to make this decision in the moment or use a timeout. You might want to save the timeout. So those all went into that very kind of frenetic 15 seconds or whatever you have to make that decision. Mm-hmm. But again, then he says, all right, we're going to punt it away. We're going to trust this defense that we've heard so much about all summer to just get a stop. And they gave up 2 big chunk plays back to back. And that just wasn't supposed to happen with this defense, as we've been led to believe. It just wasn't supposed to happen. So there's also a lot of debate about just that entire sequence leading up to the 4th down, because there was a 2nd down jet sweep to Zay Flowers. A lot of people don't like that call at all. It kept Derrick Henry off the field, and it, quote, took Lamar Jackson out of the play. Well, John Harbaugh said yesterday that was actually an RPO play. Jackson could have had the choice to keep it. And he, in that moment, he makes the decision to hand to Flowers. So, but yeah, right. It sniffed out. It went for nothing. And now they're facing 3rd and long. And they throw a pass to DeAndre Hopkins. It didn't really ever get close to the stick. So now they've got that 4th and 3 decision. I think a lot of people didn't like the Zay Flowers jet sweep call at all, particularly because it took Derrick Henry off the field, who'd been averaging 9 yards carry. So that's the question. But John said that this is an RPO play, and that's a decision Jackson made to hand to Flowers. So take that for what you will.
Yeah, he was defensive of that. He was defensive of the first half and the getting the snap off at 2:03 instead of taking it at the 2-minute warning. And there in all of these things, I think he has something that's close to a point. It just none of it feels congruent, and that's the part that I can't shake. Is that it all sort of feels like we're kind of making it up as we go along, and I think that's the part that I don't know that I can understand. And I know he referenced that we're going to be what was the word that he used, Bo, to describe how we're going to do this differently moving forward? We're going to be more. Oh God, I'm sorry, I've already forgot. I know you wrote about it too.
Well, I mean, he said they're going to be thoughtful. They're going to be
thoughtful.
Thoughtful into it. They're going to think. They're going to look at how they call the offensive play calling, how they're doing the defensive play calling, how they're talking to one another on the sideline. I'm not sure what that was a reference to. But thoughtful, he said, and I know a lot of people are saying, well, fine, you're doing it now. You lost like 15 leads. I mean, now's the time to start to do this. And that's a fair question to make about that. But, as to the congruency or whatever you're calling it, he has in the past said at times it comes down to feel for the game, and that's not going to be an answer that makes you happy. But and in that situation, I and I didn't get this. I wasn't in Buffalo, to be clear, so I didn't see this off the field live. He says Jackson came off the field and didn't look right. Well, that may absolutely affect his decision on whether to try to go for that on 4th down. It also is absolutely fair to say, well, then go ahead and use one of your timeouts and take the time to think about this, and don't think, well, we got to save our timeouts for later, because on the one hand you're saying our defense can get a stop. On the other hand, you're saying, well, let's save our timeouts in case our defense doesn't get a stop.
Yeah, that seems incongruent as well. It does.
Right? Yeah. And so, a timeout there might have been the right call to say, let's see, Lamar, are you okay? Can you do this? And if not, okay, we're going to have to punch it away. Defense, here's the deal. Go get a stop. So I think calling a timeout and resetting and be ready, I think, was also a fair criticism that maybe should have happened.
Bo, big picture, is this one game and one result for a new team in a new year, or is it a continuous story of who the Ravens are and what's in their DNA?
Well, I think we'll find out in a few weeks, right? They got the Browns, and the one thing they absolutely cannot afford is a hangover like last year. They come home after a tough loss at Kansas City. And let's say, on the one hand, on the bright spot, if you want to put it that, they just went to one of the best teams in the AFC, and they barely lost, just like last year that happened at Kansas City in the opener. But then they came home and laid an egg against the Raiders and lost again. And they absolutely cannot let that happen this week against Cleveland with Detroit and Kansas City looming. Is it a hangover? Is it a trend? I think this defense has to be better. Jair Alexander has to be better than he was in that game for what they expect from him. I was honestly surprised that he played as much as he did. He'd only practiced, I think, 2 days almost in the last month. I thought he might be out there a handful of plays. He was out there a whole bunch because they played a lot of dime, and they have 4 cornerbacks on the field, and they trust him as one of the 4. But he didn't look ready. I mean, physically, he probably may or may not have been ready, but he did not look ready. And so that defense, that secondary has to be better than they were. The pass rush has to be more impactful than it was. And they probably will be against a lot of quarterbacks that aren't Josh Allen. They better be against a quarterback like Joe Flacco, who is not going to extend plays the way Josh Allen does. So, but then they've got Detroit and Kansas City, and they'll get a better sense of it. But frankly, the defense has to be better. The offense did a lot of things really well. And you score 40 points, you should win the game,
no doubt.
Period. And that defense has to be better. I think it will be, and John Harbaugh insists it will be, and it better be, or they're not nearly the team they think they are.
Last one for you, Daniel Faalele. And I know that Roger Rosengarten didn't have a good night either, but Daniel Faalele's story, I think, is more significant. I know, given everything else, it seems like it didn't even come up. But do you think they reconsider, or this is just we're all yelling and screaming into the void about this topic?
I mean, what are the options really? And they've already made the conclusion that within the roster, he's the best option, right? I mean, I know people have been screaming for maybe Ben Cleveland in there or some other, make another move, but they've had now since basically April to assess this, and all through summer, and made the decision that he's the guy. He gets clobbered when he has a bad play. Like I said, when he misses, others have said when he misses, he tends to miss big and obviously. But they seem fully wedded to him that he's the guy, and they insist he's strong and he's going to get better at that position. But like I said, the misses are exposed, and that's a big problem, and they tend to blow up in big ways. So we'll see going forward. I'm sure they have their list. Eric DeCosta probably has a list of available guys at every position, whether they bring anyone to try out, whether they, again, kick the tires on maybe trying, Ben Cleveland or another option there. But there's only so many internal options, and they've made clear that they think Faalele is the best. So unless they were to go out on the street and find someone, and if you're available on the street now, there's a reason for that, then I think he's the guy.
Yep. I think that's the reality. All right, at Bo Smolka, that's how you follow him. PressBoxOnline.com, that's where you see his stuff. Bo, appreciate you. We'll talk to you again next Tuesday morning.
All right, thank you, Glenn. Take care.
It's Bo Smolka, PressBox Ravens beat writer, with us here on GCR. I've had a couple people suggest that they should just let Corey Bullock start. I mean, what you're saying is just do anything, right? Like that, and that's what you're saying. Do anything.
And you got to give it at least another week.
Yes.
Like, yeah.
Like, they're going to. You could say, well, you don't have to. I've seen enough. They're going to, for sure. And that's a big size difference, obviously, between Faalele and Corey Bullock. Like, if you want the size, then you would think you would just let Ben Cleveland play, right? But I don't know, man. I don't know. I have no idea. Don's crashing out in the comments this morning.
Well,
Don's having a
making
tough
some
one.
good points, though. Owe is a fraud. I do agree about that.
You're just saying things. Like, you're just
Where
saying
was he
things.
last night?
Well, last night, I don't know. It was a Monday night. I have no idea what he was doing on a Monday night. But you're
Exactly my point.
You're just saying things. You're saying, like, in the context, is Odafe Owe Max Crosby? No, obviously he's not. But this idea that, like, if he's not that, then he's a fraud. Come on, man. You're just saying stuff. And I'm not, like, we can all crash out. We can all go through it. I understand. But, like, we can't just say things for the sake of saying them. I try not to just say things for the sake of saying. What?
I got you going. We have to take a break.
We do have to take a break. Tell Joe we'll be fine. We'll be all right. I understand it. You lose games like this, you don't feel good about anything. There's no, hey, but Lamar Jackson looked good. Right, we know that. Hey, but Derrick Henry looked good. Right, we know that. Hey, but Zay Flowers looked good. Right, we did. Who? Derrick Henry?
Yeah.
Stop it. Nonsense from you. Just spewing nonsense. Like, we know all those things. Those were all the things we expected. Like, nothing happened on Sunday that was better than what we know those guys are good. We know that. You know what you have. It's the other things that you need answers for, and you just aren't getting them. Or, if you are, you're getting the wrong answers. And that's the frustrating part about this conversation. If you missed Stan the Fan, Ross Grimsley, and Luke Jackson talking baseball last night, you can find it, facebook.com/PressBoxSports, youtube.com/PressBoxOnline, or PressBoxOnline.com/video. As always, Stan's shows are brought to you by the Costas Inn and the all-new Costas Inn, now open in Timonium at the racetrack. When we come back in, we will we'll get away from the Ravens for a minute. We will talk about fantasy football, which for the most part was more pleasant for me this weekend, for the most part. We'll preview Waiver-Wire Wednesday. Are we going in on these quarterbacks that put up numbers? We'll find out next.
Freaking DJ Moore lateral last night. Hurt.
Oh, it's really weird? We were playing Rumble this week in one of my leagues, so it's just the top 6 scorers. It wouldn't have mattered. But the way that it was written, like, I was up against somebody, and if that had been the case, I would have lost because of that.
Wow.
I would have lost because of that lateral. Anyway, we'll come back in. We'll talk to Joe Serpico, PressBox Fantasy Football analyst, next. It's Glenn Clark Radio.
For fans of the Costas Inn, and who isn't, I have some great news. Now there's a second location to go along with 4100 North Point Boulevard. This one is at the Timonium OTB. This is Stan the Fan, and I have been a fan of the Costas Inn and Triantopoulos family for going on 30 years. They're open for lunch and dinner, same great Costas feel, same great menu and quality food you've been enjoying for well over 50 years. The exact address on your GPS is 2200 York Road, and their phone number at the new location is 667-406-1970. If you're new to the Costas experience, get ready for a real treat. All wrapped up in a new spacious dining room in Timonium at the OTB. If you want steamed crabs, you have them, and the full menu at 4100 North Point Boulevard. The number for reservations there at Costas, 410-477-1975.
Game day gets even better at Live Casino. Score a live jersey on September 6th and bucket hat on September 27th. Plus, catch our big plays, big pays hot seats on select game days. When the home team scores, the prize pool doubles. And we'll give away a $50 sports and social gift card with every touchdown. Take it to the end zone at Live Casino. At Arundel Mills, must be 21. Please play responsibly. For help, visit mdgamblinghelp.org or call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Gambling can be a fun and entertaining experience, but there are risks involved. If you're planning on betting on the game at the casino or on your phone or computer, know your limit, stay within it. Set a budget and a time to stop. Remember, gambling isn't a financial solution, and it doesn't mix well with alcohol or drugs. Know the risks and have a plan before you begin gambling. For free and confidential services, call 1-800-GAMBLER 24/7 or go to helpmygamblingproblem.org.
The latest edition of PressBox is available now. On the cover, Bo Smolka profiles Ravens running back Derrick Henry and how the football legend has proven to be a unicorn at the position with the success that he's found after the age of 30. Also inside, Brandon Schwartzberg looks at Kobe Mayo's push to find rhythm at the big league level. And we mark the start of the college football season by meeting players from all 4 FBS and FCS programs throughout the state. PressBox is available for free at over 500 locations throughout the region, including 60 Royal Farm stores. Or you can read the entire issue online at PressBoxOnline.com, where you can also find great betting advice and the best daily coverage of the Orioles, Ravens, and Terps.
Feeling sluggish, unfocused, or not like yourself? It could be low testosterone. At Game Day Men's Health, we specialize in testosterone replacement therapy to help men boost energy, improve mood, and regain confidence. Our treatments, including testosterone cypionate, are safe, natural, and tailored to fit your lifestyle with weekly injections or pellet therapy. Get started today with a free testosterone test and feel the difference. GameDayMen'sHealth.com. Game Day Men's Health, where men reclaim their game.
Contrary to what some people believe, I actually like this guy when he sleeps. Glenn Clark, talking sports.
All right, back in here on GCR as we continue along on a Tuesday edition of the program, countysports.zone, for everything you need to know about high school sports here in the state of Maryland. Every score, every schedule, every ranking, every news update, they've got it all for you. Countysports.zone, proudly sponsored by your local Toyota dealer and buyatoyota.com. Orioles will open up a series with the Pirates tonight. Tomorrow night is the night that Paul Skeens is scheduled to pitch. If you're looking for an excuse to go to the ballpark, that's probably a good night to do it. I have plans. I'm going Thursday afternoon. But if you're looking for an excuse, Paul Skeens pitching tomorrow night for the Pirates in Baltimore seems like a pretty good reason to go to the ballpark. Unlike last week where you didn't know that Shohei Ohtani was pitching until 2 minutes before the game started. You have a little bit of a heads up that Skeens is pitching tomorrow. Let's preview Waiver-Wire Wednesday. Joining us now, he is our PressBox Fantasy Football analyst. Mr. Joe Serpico joins us every Tuesday here on GCR. Joe, it's Glenn. What's going on, man? How was week one for you?
It was a mixed bag. I think a lot of people can actually say that after this week. We saw some guys that we didn't expect to put up big numbers, and then some guys we thought were going to put up big numbers didn't put up any numbers.
Yeah, that is kind of the reality of what you were dealing with, and I dealt with a little bit of that. Glad hey, I really want to try to come away with Isaiah Pacheco in a lot of drafts plan kind of backfired on me a bit for week one. Let's start, as we go into the waiver wire, let's start with the quarterbacks, right? Who of the quarterbacks that surprisingly put up huge numbers this week, the Daniel Jones, the Aaron Rodgers of the world, who of that group would you, after 1 week, say, this is enough for me that if you have, and who would the guys be that if you have, like, for example, in one league, I went heavy on Bo Nix, and I'm not feeling so great about it. Who is it that you would go for? To what extent would you go for them? Is it wait it out, let's see? Let's just break down the quarterback thing to begin with.
Well, I think the biggest name, the one that I put in my article for this week, was Daniel Jones, because he was arguably the biggest surprise of the weekend. Now, we've seen this before. We've seen him have these games where you're like, ooh, that's why the Giants used, was the fifth pick on him overall. And then we've seen kind of the duds that he's laid. And let's face it, after the first week, I think the biggest shocker to all of us, and maybe not a shocker, but I think the biggest stinker, I guess you could say, of all of them, was just how bad the Dolphins were, especially defensively. I was saying the Saints could be the worst team going in this year. After what I saw last week, we might be talking about the Dolphins being that worst team going down the line. But so Daniel Jones is one of those guys. If you're in a super flex league, yeah, you have to add him as the end of the bench guy. If you were looking for somebody who might still be available, but it's probably in your middle tier of the quarterbacks there, two names kind of pop out to me. If Caleb Williams is somehow still available for you, I would go out and get him. I liked what I saw from him last night. The other one being Michael Penix Jr. I also liked what I saw from him on Sunday. I think he's going to open up the Falcons' offense a little bit. The one that kind of intrigues me, though, is Aaron Rodgers. I don't know what to do about that guy. We know what he was in his heyday. He was arguably the best quarterback in the league for the longest time. Then we saw what he did the past 2 years with the Jets. Now we see him absolutely scorch the Jets. Is this the Aaron Rodgers of the future? I don't know. So of all those guys that I just mentioned, Caleb's probably the guy I'm going after the hardest, then Penix, then Rodgers, then Jones. But the only one that I'm like, if I'm in a one-quarterback league that I'm really trying to go after is probably Caleb Williams. And then there's like a huge drop-off after the other three.
So are you spending fab on Caleb Williams, and how much?
Depends on who you got. Like if you mentioned your situation where you got Knicks and you're a little bit worried, or you started your season with, let's say, Drake May and you're a little bit worried, I'm probably using about 10% of my fab just to make sure I lock up something at quarterback. Because in general, this is usually week one is the week where we go heavy on fab. We're not getting that this year in week one. I think it's kind of a lighter group of week ones we need to see what happens in week 2, and I think this is the week that we're truly going to get aggressive with waiver wire pickups.
Well, I think you're referring to that because, like, there's no one at the running back position that wasn't owned that, like, surprised everybody. There was no, maybe for people that drafted Woody Marks and held out hope that, like, he could be – no one that wasn't on the radar ended up being a factor at running back.
The only one you could maybe say, and then I don't even know if I'm willing to – use Fab on him, was where did Kenneth Gainwell come out of to be the number 2 back for the Steelers?
Right.
Everybody was hype on Caleb Johnson going into the year, and while I'm talking about him, I know he only had the 2 snaps this weekend, but you still stash him at the end of the. I'd rather keeping stashing Caleb Johnson on my bench than picking up Kenneth Gainwell, who I think eventually is going to get phased out for Caleb Johnson to take over.
So what about at wide receiver? Are you spending Fab on Hollywood Brown or Quentin Johnston?
Hollywood Brown, I absolutely am. Actually, I'm probably going to go a little bit aggressive on him in one league that I'm in true need of wide receiver help. He had the 16 targets this last week, and that was more because of, we know the suspension of Rashee Rice, then Xavier Worthy got banged up, and then let's face it, Travis Kelce just doesn't look like the player he was years ago. So Brown becomes the de facto number 1 and heavily targeted. And what was extra intriguing to me is they're kind of putting him in Rashee Rice's role of working him out of the slot, which hasn't been where he's worked for the majority of his career. And we could see, always has been the case with Mahomes, whoever operates out of just that slot guy for them puts up huge numbers. So Hollywood Brown, I'm going aggressive with him. Quentin Johnston is intriguing to me because he's still the number 3 there. Lad McConkey and Keenan Allen are going to get most of the looks there, but that opens up a lot for Quentin Johnston. We saw that this past weekend. He's somebody that I'm putting as, let's say, my last receiver on my team, see if this plays out this week and continues to be a trend. But I'm not going uber aggressive to grab him unless I'm truly needing a wide receiver because, like I said, let's face it, he's another one of the guys we've seen it before. He's very drop heavy. You just having to hang on the ball this week. So I would hate to have that guy, working the end of my bench and then come back to his usual problems that we're used to having.
What about Cedric Tillman with so while we're on wide receiver, Cedric Tillman with the Browns? Is it just because they were facing the Bengals last week, or is Cedric Tillman, the 1B to Jerry Jeudy?
I do think that's the case, actually. I consider putting Tillman in here, but as I believe it's 4 of the last 5 games that Tillman's actually out-targeted Jerry Jeudy, so that's definitely something you need to keep account of. Again, if you're in need of wide receiver help, he is definitely a guy you want to spend a couple Fab dollars on. It might be one of those circumstances where we might be talking in 3-4 weeks that he is maybe 1A, 1B, but as of right now, it looks like Tillman is the one that's getting the majority of the looks there. That could be a game plan thing. You're right. We all know about how bad the Bengals defense is. But at least if you need receiver help this week, we all saw how much the Ravens got exposed through the air this past weekend. So I would be willing to start Tillman this week as well.
Let's go to tight end. We're chatting with Joe Serpico, PressBox Fantasy Football analyst, with us here to preview Waiver-Wire Wednesday. For some people are in leagues where they had Mark Andrews and thought, maybe he'd be targeted sometimes.
He did.
Are you heavy on like a Harold Fan and a Jonnu Smith? Are you, don't over? I guess who, if you have versus you don't have, walk me through what you're doing at tight end.
I mentioned Harold Fannin on my piece just because you had to, based off the numbers. The usage was great to see, and we know about the history with Joe Flacco and tight ends. And I believe it was Griffin who was kind of big on Fannin going into the draft process too.
Harold Fannin fan. He was.
Yeah. So I could see, and you saw firsthand why there was so much hype around. I mean, he's uber athletic. So I do think he's going to be a guy that is going to be a factor for the Browns moving forward. Is he going to be a factor for fantasy purposes? I don't know. I'm not really trying to rely on a second tight end on any team. We fell for this mistake last year with Isaiah Likely. Let's put it that way. We saw Likely was the big name to pop off last week. Everybody went out aggressively to get him, and it kind of burned you. So Fannon's not the guy that I'm probably going after. The one that I'm maybe considering is Juwan Jennings. He is by far the best tight end of the Saints have right now.
Yeah, Juwan Jennings.
Juwan Johnson, excuse me. Yes.
Yep, okay.
My apologies, yes. We can get into Juwan Jennings in a second because I don't want anything to do with any of those 49ers with how they're banged up right now. But yeah, Juwan Johnson is the one that I would want to potentially keep an eye on. But even that's a circumstance where, do you really want to trust any Saints right now outside of Alvin Kamara? I don't know how much I'm willing to put stock into the Saints considering their quarterback situation right now, too. So like I kind of said before, this is a rough week. Arguably the worst week one waivers that we've had probably in the past 3 or 4 years. Like, I feel bad for anybody who kind of went with the zero RB approach and hoped that somebody was going to get hurt after week one or you'd see some clarity after this week. It did not happen. So there's a couple handcuffs to maybe stash, but there is no number one guy that you're going to get this week in free agency other than Hollywood Brown, like I said, is the big one for me.
All right.
What do you make of the Tank Bigsby trade? So, like the Jags, I grabbed Tootin in one league. I have Bigsby in another. I did not get any Etienne. So does this mean that they're all in like on Travis Etienne, Jacksonville?
Yeah, I would have to assume that is the case here. I like the move for both teams in a sense of the Jaguars kind of get rid of that muddled backfield there. They can kind of focus on let it be Etienne. And then for the Eagles, I actually really like it to be insurance for, God forbid, something was to happen to Saquon Barkley there. But no, Etienne obviously skyrockets up draft boards. Tootin's another one. It's probably going to be another one of those higher priority handcuffs now that a couple weeks ago he was end of the bench. Now you're kind of stashing him to see where things happen with him. But Bigsby is definitely another one now. He becomes, if you were somebody that invested in Will Shipley, you might as well just get rid of him because I would assume now that that's the backup role is going to go to Bigsby. Otherwise, you're not making that move. And using 2 picks to get him, too.
Is it still worth it to hang on to Bigsby?
Yeah, for like what I said, for the reasons of the handcuff thing. A lot of talk going into this year about the league leader in rushing the next year always seems to get banged up, never finishes as a top 10 running back. And I think Saquon's a little bit of a unicorn when it comes to that. But if Saquon were to get banged up at any point this year, it is going to be Bigsby. That's going to be the guy that backs him up, I believe.
By the way, for what it's worth, in my Bo Nix league, I just realized that I also have Caleb Williams. So
there you go.
You're saying just play Caleb Williams next week and ride that out and see how these two guys are, and you might have 2 decent options. You're not worried about going and getting like another quarterback from that group we were talking about.
Well, if you have those 2, I can't imagine. I mean, I'm going to guess that league has been heavily picked up on quarterbacks. So. I would
like the guys that are the Daniel Jones, the Aaron Rodgers, those types are actually Jared Goff's available in that league as well.
Well, you know how I feel about Jared Goff. That was dating back to last year, but I don't know. They kind of scared me a little bit this week too. Yeah. Maybe the Ben Johnson was a thing. Maybe Ben Johnson really was a thing for the Lions. But no, in your circumstance there, I'm probably writing out the 2 that you have and just seeing how it kind of plays out. I forget what the matchups are for both of those this week. I think the Broncos have somebody relatively easy, if I remember correctly.
The Broncos, the
Broncos have Indy, at Indy.
So, at Indy, okay. Oh, no, that's why I was saying not to pick up Daniel Jones this week because I'm not too crazy about Daniel Jones going against the Broncos defense.
Yeah, and on the flip side, the Bears are at Detroit this week, for what it's worth.
Yeah. So, and like I said, I kind of liked what I saw from Caleb Williams. We're expecting him to have that year 2 jump. I was expecting that from Bo Nix as well. So, if you're going into this week, that's a tough one to pick between. I'm probably still going Nix, but not by a whole lot.
Okay, I will continue to monitor it. All right, at Joe Serp is how you follow him on Twitter. PressBoxOnline.com is where you see all of his stuff, and you've got Start 'em and Sit 'em up today, correct?
Yep, they're up right now, and like I said, I kind of like alluded on there. There's some guys you do want, and there's some guys you don't go too crazy about. Don't get overexcited that Keon Coleman and Quentin Johnson were the star guys this weekend, and then Jamar Chase and A.J. Brown laid major duds. It's just 1 week, everybody. Relax.
I hear you, but I still think like somebody's got to be the top receiver in Buffalo. Like somebody's got to do it.
Oh, I agree. Don't get me wrong. I agree with that 100%. But nobody was expecting. Here's your top 5 after week 1: Zay Flowers, Quentin Johnson, Emeka Buka, Keon Coleman, and Dio Samuel. Nobody was expecting that.
I get it.
Even though my bold prediction for this week was Zay Flowers remains as the overall wide receiver 1 after this week as well.
Ooh, very interesting. All right, pal. We will talk to you next Tuesday. Thanks for joining us as always.
Absolutely, guys. You take care.
That's Joe Serpico, PressBox Fantasy Football analyst, with us here on GCR. The Maryland 5-Star returns this October to Fair Hill in Cecil County. You're going to want to be there. It's the 5th edition of the Maryland 5-Star. Going to be an awesome week. Triple Crown of Equestrian, just a celebration of fall in the state of Maryland, ponies, the Corgi Cup, Food and Wine Festival, shopping, so much more going on at the Maryland 5-Star. Get your tickets, maryland5star.us with the number 5. We'll come back in. We will go over the 5 plays that told the story. We will get a tidbit and 2-bit to wrap it up. It's a Tuesday edition of Glenn Clark Radio. Feeling sluggish, unfocused, or not like yourself? It could be low testosterone. At Game Day Men's Health, we specialize in testosterone replacement therapy to help men boost energy, improve mood, and regain confidence. Our treatments, including testosterone cypionate, are safe, natural, and tailored to fit your lifestyle with weekly injections or pellet therapy. Get started today with a free testosterone test and feel the difference. GameDayMen'sHealth.com. Game Day Men's Health, where men reclaim their game.
For fans of the Costas Inn, and who isn't, I have some great news. Now there's a second location to go along with 4100 North Point Boulevard. This one is at the Timonium OTB. This is Stan the Fan, and I have been a fan of the Costas Inn and Triantafalo's family for going on 30 years. They're open for lunch and dinner, same great Costas feel, same great menu and quality food you've been enjoying for well over 50 years. The exact address on your GPS is 2200 York Road, and their phone number at the new location is 667-406-1975. If you're new to the Costas experience, get ready for a real treat. All wrapped up in a new spacious dining room in Timonium at the OTB. If you want steamed crabs, you have them, and the full menu at 4100 North Point Boulevard. The number for reservations there at Costas, 410-477-1975.
Gambling can be a fun and entertaining experience, but there are risks involved. If you're planning on betting on the game at the casino or on your phone or computer, know your limit, stay within it. Set a budget and a time to stop. Remember, gambling isn't a financial solution, and it doesn't mix well with alcohol or drugs. Know the risks and have a plan before you begin gambling. For free and confidential services, call 1-800-GAMBLER 24/7 or go to helpmygamblingproblem.org.
Looking for Baltimore's premier waterfront dining experience? Head to Nick's Fish House, located in the Baltimore Peninsula. Enjoy crabs all year long, plus happy hour Monday through Thursday from 3 to 6. Planning a celebration? From rehearsal dinners to corporate crab feasts, Nick's is the spot to make it unforgettable. And the fun doesn't stop there. Live music fills the air every Thursday through Sunday. Check out the full lineup at nicksfishhouse.com. Nick's, it's where Baltimore comes to eat, drink, and play by the water.
Game day gets even better at Live Casino. Score a live jersey on September 6th and bucket hat on September 27th. Plus, catch our big plays, big pays hot seats on select game days. When the home team scores, the prize pool doubles. And we'll give away a $50 sports and social gift card with every touchdown. Take it to the end zone at Live Casino. At Arundel Mills, must be 21. Please play responsibly. For help, visit mdgamblinghelp.org or call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Make the most out of every day in your Toyota RAV4. Available in hybrid or gas-only models. A RAV4 can get you where you want to go in style. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new RAV4s from your local Toyota dealer today.
Coming back in here with Glenn and the other guy, Garrett, whatever his name is. You know who they are.
Yeah, you know who we are. It is a Tuesday edition of Glenn Clark Radio. Again, appreciate everybody who joined us for Project Game Day this past weekend. If you missed it, you can still watch it, and you get the full Rita experience from this week's episode of Project Game Day. It's myself, Rita, KZ, Stecca, Griffin was there, and our special guest for week one was Tyus Bowser, former Ravens linebacker. Reacting after that defeat. Project Game Day, every game day this season, all brought to you by the Costas Inn, 1-800-GAMBLER, Live Casino and Hotel Maryland, and Game Day Men's Health. PressBoxOnline.com/GameDay. Come join us after Ravens-Browns on Sunday. All right, 5 plays. I guess we don't have. Do we not have imaging? We got to do some imaging for our other segments. And we got to do better imaging, too. But, you know, we also need a board. There's lots of things we need. We'll work on it. I have no doubt. I have no doubt that by, like, December, we'll have everything we need for the football season. So We'll be good to go then. 5 plays that told the story. I'll begin at number 5. Number 5 and number 4, you're going to find a theme. Number 5, you go to 10:52 to play in the fourth quarter. Originally appeared to be an interception for Chidobe Awuzie. Replay quickly fixed that, as obviously the ball had hit the ground. You'll see what happened on number 4. To me, I'll just go ahead and tell you number 4 is the Malachi Starks would-be interception on the first drive. The fourth quarter drive ended in a punt, but the Ravens would have had the ball, already rolling in much better field position. That's the only reason why it's lower on the list than the first quarter one. The first quarter one obviously ended in a touchdown on the first drive of the game for the Bills, but it's the storyline, it's the narrative, these are the difference between being a good defense and being a championship defense. To me, is making the plays when the plays are there to be made. And 2 times the Ravens had interceptions waiting for them. The Starks one was off a deflection from Khalil Shakir, so you could say, hey, he wasn't expecting it. Awuzie's, obviously that's down by the ground. I'm not trying to say they're easy plays to make, but they're plays that are there to be made, and neither play was made. So Awuzie 5, Starks 4 for me on my list.
I stayed in the fourth quarter. I mean, we talked about this yesterday, how interceptions are weird, and so I didn't have either interception or either non-interception.
I think that's the problem. The problem is
you got to try to make weird stuff happen.
That's how you win championships.
Yeah.
And it's not even weird because, again, neither of these are plays that shouldn't have been made. These weren't exceptional plays. These were just not easy plays. When the ball comes to you, you have to get the ball. You're not winning championships just being in the right spot. And I think when we grade defenses, it's part of the problem we have in the way that we look at football anymore. And I'm not trying to be an old man yelling at a cloud because I understand that all of this data is valuable, but we grade based on were you in the correct place? Were you there to make the play? The plays aren't easy to make. Turnovers aren't predictive. We say that all the time, right? Turnovers, we look at things that are predictive versus aren't predictive, and turnovers aren't predictive. So we are a bit more dismissive of them because of it. You win championships because you're the team that makes the effing plays. And I get it, Geno Stone made a lot of them a couple years ago, and they didn't win a championship that year either. We can have the deep conversation. But the ball comes to you. This is how you win games. You steal possessions. You suck the life out of a team. And you don't give them second chances.
Ravens went 3 and out. So this was after the drive that you were talking about. So the Bills punted after Awuzie was not able to come up with the interception. Ravens went 3 and out. And one of the best punts of Jordan Stout's young career was downed at the 1. So we thought Trenton Simpson went maybe a millimeter over the goal line there, and this was just kind of the first, maybe the second of the favors, because the play or the Ravens series before this was the extra point. I did not have the extra point miss on my list.
I didn't either.
So this was kind of the first of those favors that the Ravens started to give. This was 7:27 left in the fourth, and it ended up being a touchback instead of the Bills being pinned at the 1. So that was my number 5.
It's certainly a play that was up for consideration for me in a day that, you bring up the extra point. There's probably 7 to 10 plays that I could have considered here. The big Josh Palmer catch on the final Bills drive was one. To me, that's just a really good play that was made, but it still counts. There are a lot of plays that could go into consideration, but and this one certainly, there's no doubt, was one of them. That's a swing of 20 yards, and it's a swing of them being backed up and having to deal with being backed up.
Because then they're able to come back. I think they made an 8-yard pass. They completed an 8-yard pass the next play.
The point is they have to
time.
Now if you down that ball, now the first minute of that drive is just them dealing with where they are on the field.
Yeah.
You're at least sucking a minute off the clock, just them dealing with where they are. That's the reality.
My number 4 was then not the Josh Palmer play, but the next play. That was the 25-yard pass across the middle, and Jair Alexander, 1, gets beat, and then 2,
the decision
makes the tackle.
And that one didn't make my list either, and certainly could have been on the list because less that he got beat because they were basically in field goal range already by that point. Like, that's why that
maybe it's just because it happened, maybe because it's a piggyback of the play before, and that's why it feels like it weighs more.
But the tackle itself.
And there's argument the play, maybe I should have put the Palmer play instead, because just looking at the win probability, so after this play, the Bills went from, the play before, so the Palmer play was the
Palmer
Ravens
play
were
came
still,
after the penalty. It was a 2nd and 10. They had gotten 5 yards on first down, and then there was a false start on Deion Dawkins.
Yeah. So it was like still Ravens' probability was 60+, I think. And sorry, it was 76. I wrote it down. The Ravens were at 76%, but after the false start. And then they complete to Palmer over Jair Alexander, and the Bills go to 62% chance to win. And then this play, the 25-yard pass to Coleman across the middle, and then Jair Alexander gets the shoestring tackle. Then they go up to 75% chance to win for the Buffalo Bills.
Yep.
So I mean, just Jair Alexander not making plays late in the game in the final minute of the game when you need him to, and ironic, I guess, because it is an impressive tackle, but it's like this is the one time you can't have.
This is the awkward part about it, and it's probably the reason why it doesn't make the list is because I don't know if Keon Coleman would have known to go down at the 1 or not, right? Like I don't know enough to say definitively you would have gotten the ball back. I would think
it felt like I needed to have one of these two plays on the list.
I hear it, and in both the plays were plays that I considered for my list, but ultimately, again, this is the week where there were like 10 plays.
We might have two completely different lists.
I considered both of them, only to say that ultimately in the end, I want to say I think Keon Coleman would have gone down to the 1, but now it's awkward, right? Because I want to say that Jair Alexander would have known not to tackle him, right? Like I don't know who's getting coached up in what way in that moment. I think the Bills probably say to their guys, hey, by the way, if you break free, you need to go down. We've seen more and more of that in the NFL. That's become more of a trend. So I think he would have I think he would have known to go down, but whatever it is, you got to give him the opportunity to panic and not know, right? Like, you can't be the one that makes the tackle there. Number 3 for me.
And also, Kyle Hamilton's going to be back there throwing him into the end zone, so because he would have done the right thing.
Known, right? I don't know. He was the guy that threw a lateral back into the end zone.
Yeah, but he went to Notre Dame, so.
I understand. He threw a lateral back into the end zone.
Well, I mean, I kind of saw where he was coming from.
Oh, did you?
I watched a lot of Ed Reed highlights, too.
Yeah. Number 3 is I can't get over. Like, we all know how botched the end of the first half was, and we're obsessing over the 2:03 mark. But the more I thought about it and the more I rewatched it, it is utterly insane that the Ravens allowed the 22-yard completion to Dalton Kincaid that set up the field goal. And not so much that they allowed a completed pass. It's that the Bills were out of timeouts. If you just give up something in the playing field, no matter where it is, the half is over. They are not going to have enough time with 7 seconds left to get up and stop the clock. All you got to do there is defend 2 things, the end zone and the sideline. That's it. The rest of the middle of the field, give them 40 yards. You only have to defend the end zone and the sideline. And I get it because the play was really well drawn up. Like, it looked for a second like they were just going to throw the Hail Mary there. And maybe that screwed with them. And I didn't get to see the all-22 yet to know if, like, anybody went back to the end zone that should have been up. But that's it. All you got to do is make sure they don't get out of bounds. That's it. You got, I think it was 53 yards to work with.
They were at
47 yards. You got 53 yards to work with to make sure they don't get out of bounds. Or to force Josh Allen to speed up and recognize that you are defending the sideline, so he can't go that way, and he just has to chuck the ball up and hope for the best. It's insane. You know another level why it ended up on my list? You called a timeout before that! You called a timeout to discuss how to defend the play, knowing All you got to do is defend the sidelines. You still gave up a play that got them out of bounds with a second left. It is unreal, given that combination of things, that this occurred. And while I can argue that maybe like the dropped interceptions are actually more impactful, you could argue some of these other plays, it's the totality of this. All you got to do is defend the sidelines. And you didn't do it. And you didn't do it after you called a timeout, presumably to say that exact same thing. This is insane. And yes, it stole 3 points that ended up being critical, and I can't escape it. I can't escape how insane it is that this happened. And this goes back to our questions about, are you a good defense? Because there's just no way that this can occur. That's my number 3.
Yeah, that's a good one. Again, I stayed in the fourth quarter just because looking at, you look at it and they gave up 250 yards to Josh Allen. They gave up 22 points in the fourth quarter. So I had to stay in the fourth quarter, even though, you look back and every point obviously did matter, but it was so hard to, once you're up 40-25, it's so hard. All you had to do was not give up 16 points in 10 minutes, and they did exactly that. So I went to the first touchdown that they scored. They ended up giving up 16 points in 4 minutes here. But the touchdown to this was the one, the 4th and 2.
This is my number 2.
This was the 4th and 2, and a ridiculous play by the Bills, and you're only getting pressure from Kyle Van Noy. He pushes Allen to the side that Odafe is on, and Odafe makes no attempt at him, and they throw a ball into the end zone. It was intended for Shakir, it looked like, and then it was tipped by Kincaid, and then somehow caught by Keon Coleman. And this is the weird stuff that happened. Like this one, wasn't. You didn't even need an interception here. You just needed somebody else to deflect the ball, bat this ball down, and it somehow finds its way into the end zone. And this was, I guess, it ends up being a great play for the Bills, but just a really. And now I got the wrong thing playing. Well, trying to do a better show here. But yeah, this was also the play. They get a stop. This was when the Ravens win probability peaked as well. This was the 99.1. You're going into a 4th and 2. All you need is one stop in this game, and the game's over. And they couldn't do it.
It was my number 2. It just sort of set all this up. Again, you make the stop, the game's over. This is the first chance you have to definitively end the game on 4th down. Your complaint about Odafe Owe, you also need to keep contained against Josh Allen. This is the really difficult part about facing Josh Allen and how you defend.
And he comes,
you're not supposed to just go after someone. You're supposed to still stay in the lane against Josh Allen because.
Well, once you have Kyle Van Noy right there, and Kyle
Van Noy's coming from the other side. He's not going to be able. If Josh Allen takes off, he's not going to be able to go get Josh Allen. Please stop because we're going to get dinged. It's not simple against Josh Allen. It's very difficult. But ultimately, it's a fluky play. And I'm not really it's number 2, not because I'm faulting the Ravens or that I'm faulting them for number 3 on the list. Number 3 is more about your failure. Number 2 is just about the result of the play changed everything. If that ball is deflected and not caught, the game is over. Over. That's unreal, man. It's just unreal. My number 2.
My number 2 was the decision to not go for it on punt.
I've talked about this before. Decisions aren't plays. The punt itself, I would have considered, but decisions aren't plays. It's the play that we're judging.
Can I go back and make it the 3rd down and get basically the fact that that Ed Oliver comes through and crushes Lamar and now Lamar can't whatever the reason being that led to them ultimately deciding punt is the best thing here. And so then if that's, we have to credit the Bills on making the play. They get the stop, obviously, tackling DeAndre Hopkins in the middle of the field, and then also knocking Lamar out for seemingly at least one play. So can I go back? Should I go back then and make it the 3rd down?
It's a weird thing, right?
I think this is the sequence, though, this is the sequence that's my number 2.
This is the difficulty about
because if Lamar Jackson goes for it on 4th down,
this is the problem. The way that we do this segment, decisions are different than plays, right? And it's the result of the play, what actually happened on the play, And by the way, and I still think
then I'll make it the third down.
I still think it's worthy of
the play
consideration
before.
because it wasn't a good enough punt. Like
I mean, that's that too. But I think the bigger factor was the fact that if I'm not allowed to make it the decision, then I'm going to make it the reason that they punted, and the reason that they punted is because they got stopped on 3rd and 10, and Lamar got knocked out of the game. So.
Or
whatever happened
out of the game.
I know whatever happened.
But it impacted their ultimate decision. Like that play is significant. I do think the punt is worthy of. I mean, say what you want about the previous punt and how Tyler Loop's not been very good, but he finally delivered like a really great punt. But then it's not Tyler Loop, sorry, Jordan Stout. Yeah. But then you needed like you say you flipped the field. It was a 42-yard punt. And yes, they avoided it being returned, right, by it going out of bounds.
Because it hopped it.
A little bit. It took a little bit of a roll to get the 42. And I don't know if the plan was just get it out of bounds, don't allow there for to be I don't know what the thought process was. But from where you're punting from, there's just no reason why that can't be a punt that goes inside the 10. I just think you needed better than this, period. You needed better than this. But it ultimately...
So this is the play I'm going with, and you'll see how Lamar gets hit here by Ed Oliver, coming up pretty much untouched, I guess, right up the middle. Or sorry, it was Ed Oliver. Sorry, he
on a delay.
On a delay.
Look, obviously Derrick Henry's fumble was going to be number 1 on this list because as far as pivotal is concerned, it was the most pivotal play of the game. The game changed most dramatically because of it. It's funny because I don't know if anybody else felt that way. When they lined up to go for 2, I wanted them to get it after they scored the touchdown. It's one of these weird things about football anymore. Everybody in the country...
Because then the Ravens have to score.
Because then you're not playing the clock. You're just going out and being the Ravens. And the other team isn't necessarily thinking about the clock either because they don't want to give you more time. Because they were out of timeouts by then, right?
You're talking about when it was 38, 48, 30?
When it was 42-40. Or sorry, when it was 40... 38. When it was 40-38.
Yeah.
And they're going for 2 after they get the fumble. They go score on the other side of the 2-minute warning. And they're going to go for 2. All I'm thinking is I'd rather them get it. I'd rather this be a tie game because they still have timeouts left. And they're not going to use those timeouts because they don't want to give the Ravens any more time to go score. It's better for it to be a tie game than for it to be. I know that sounds weird, and it's not factually accurate.
Make sense. I mean,
but like the circumstances of that are you now are dictating. You're dictating everything that happens here. You're dictating whatever you want to do, as provided you don't go 3 and out.
There's
right?
less.
Like,
There's less.
You throw an incomplete pass on first down, then it's a problem. You're probably running the ball. Daring them. They're not going to call a timeout, getting some more time off the clock, and getting the clock to a place where this is ending on our terms. Now, if you throw the ball on first or second down, you throw incomplete passes, then it's a different conversation, right? Like, you can screw it up. But you're probably running the ball on first down, making sure you use some clock, getting the clock under a minute to play before you're really engaging. And given that you have Lamar Jackson, I still like my chances, and you have Derrick Henry, I still like my chances here. You get a first down, the game is definitely ending on your terms, right? Like the regulation's ending on your terms anyway. So in that moment, Nate Wiggins did exactly what he was supposed to do in breaking up a 2-point conversion, but I legitimately had that feeling of I'd rather this be a tie game than you being up by 2, and them being aggressive to call the timeouts, and you being kind of in no man's land when it comes to how aggressive should we be. It's just one of those things that I think about now in football. That you don't change. You don't say, "Hey, go let them have 2 points." But
what's nice is the Bills proved why you should always go for 2 whenever, pretty much whenever.
Well,
whenever you're trailing.
You should definitely be in a position where you know what you need.
Mm-hmm.
Like the argument of going, I can't imagine anybody still arguing for you're down by 15, you kick an extra point first to stay in the game longer. We all know. That's the reason why you do it. You need to know, Did you get the 2-point conversion or not? This idea that you're more likely to get it at the end of the game.
Wait, I guess I kind of like, because they did kick the extra point when they were down 15, didn't they?
No, they went for 2.
The Bills, when it was because it was 40-32. It
was 40-30,
So
or it was 40-25. Yeah, you're right. They did
yeah.
kick the extra point. Why the hell did they do that?
I don't know why.
It worked out for them anyway, I guess.
Yeah, the fumble was my number 1 as well. I mean, it just
it's clear.
so much goes wrong. There's and it does. I feel like it does
it's just
a good
a dramatic
summary.
change.
A good summary. Ed Oliver was the best player yesterday.
He sure was.
I keep saying yesterday.
Sunday. Yep.
But yeah, and bullying the right side of the line all night, and
No doubt.
that's exactly what he did on that play. And
No doubt.
Yeah.
All right, very good. We'll get them up at GlennClarkRadio.com here
Made their own
in
luck,
a little
as
bit.
we keep saying.
And those are the 5 plays that told the story. And now we move on. Now, well, that's not true. We'll probably continue to talk about it, but we will attempt to move on. All right, let's get a tidbit. Tidbit is brought to you today by the print issue of PressBox, which is still available. Does have Derrick Henry on the cover. Great story from Bo Smolka about the Ravens running back. A lot of fall college sports inside that print issue of PressBox, which is available for free wherever you find PressBox around town. Or read it all, PressBoxOnline.com.
Dodgers. I don't know. Did you see this last night?
Yeah, they had another no-hitter. This one was a combined no-hitter, though, so it's not real.
Tyler Glasnow went 7 innings, and then he was already over at like 105 or 110 or something, so they took him out, and Blake Treinen pitched a no-hit 8th, and then Tanner Scott gave it up in the 9th inning. Dodgers are the first team to lose a no-hit bid in the 9th inning twice in a 3-game span. So first time ever that's happened. Congrats, or maybe not congrats to the Dodgers. I don't know, because it's still two really good pitching performances.
Correct.
So
well, but one of them,
that's good.
One of them, they lost.
Well, yeah. So I guess not congrats.
Yeah, I mean, like
J.J. McCarthy, first starting quarterback, with a 10-point fourth-quarter comeback in his NFL debut since 1985.
That's before Troy Aikman. 1985.
His NFL debut, 10-point fourth-quarter comeback.
1985. NFL debut in 1985.
Since the Ravens weren't a team in 1985.
Yeah, and it
wasn't
after,
against them, but I wouldn't have been surprised if it was against the Ravens.
Thank you. It was after Dan Marino. It was after Jim Kelly. It was after John Elway. God. How about... I can't even remember... Maybe I'll just say those guys, I know they were at least drafted by then. Did they sit out for a couple years? Did Jim Kelly, John Elway, or Dan Marino sit out for 2 years? I can't.
I mean, did either of them sit out? I don't know. They're not the answer. They're not the answer.
Okay. Who else were
Let's see.
quarterbacks?
Did this guy sit out? Let me see.
How about is that?
He's a Hall of Famer.
It's a Hall of Famer. Montana?
No, not Montana. So I think he did sit out his first year, though. Did he? Right? Why? What? He was a first overall pick.
He was a first overall pick.
He was the first overall pick in 1984.
1984?
Mm-hmm.
So that would have been, because the other guys are 83, so 84 would have been, he was the first overall pick in 80.
Oh, he didn't do this with the team that he was so he was okay. Maybe you know what? Why was it the NFL so weird in the 80s?
Was Boomer? It was a Boomer.
No,
he wasn't a Hall
Boomer,
of Famer.
exactly.
Yeah.
Why was the NFL so weird in the 80s? I don't understand how it worked. Like how the teams were drafted. He was drafted apparently in the supplemental draft by the LA Express.
Well, that's not. Yeah, I mean that was in the
yeah.
That's in the.
But then
USFL.
he was then he went to the Bucks for the 1985 and 86 season, before finding his pro football. Before making his Hall of Fame career with this stop starting in 87.
Oh my God, I know this. Oh my God, I really do know this, and it's gonna drive me crazy.
So he was the first pick by the Bucks in the supplemental draft.
But in the supplemental draft isn't the draft,
Okay,
so he wasn't the first overall pick. It's Steve Young. That's who it is.
Yes,
it's Steve Young.
It is Steve
Okay.
Young. It is Steve Young. Correct.
Okay.
So 85 was his first.
All right. No. All of that works out in a weird way. I get it, but
it doesn't make any sense to me.
You screwed it up by telling me he was the first pick in the draft.
Okay. So then how? So when was he technically drafted? Like he just
there was a supplemental draft. Do you not know what the supplemental draft was?
No.
Okay. Jared Gaither was once a supplemental draft pick. for whatever reason, the NFL stopped doing it recently, but what would happen is if for whatever reason there was a circumstance why you didn't declare for the draft. So some players like maybe didn't declare for the draft and then found out they were ineligible to play in the fall. So they would declare for what was called the supplemental draft. And in the summer, they would have the supplemental draft. And in the supplemental draft, if you used a pick on a player, then you lost your pick in the following draft in the
NFL draft.
In that round. So if the Buccaneers used a first round pick in the supplemental draft on Steve Young,
but it was also the 84 draft.
Yes,
okay.
It wasn't the 84 draft. You keep thinking about the NFL draft. The supplemental draft was a different thing that happened in the summer. There was no pomp and circumstance. It was a phone call. Everybody got on a conference call, and they said, this is the first round of the supplemental draft.
Jersey and being
does anyone want to use a pick? And they would still go in the same order.
Gotcha.
And if two teams both wanted the same player, then whoever had the higher order got them. But
so the Bucs could have had the 20th pick, and they went 19.
And then what it meant was they then didn't have a first-round pick
in
the 85 draft. That pick they lost because they used it in the supplemental draft the previous year. Jarrett Gaither was I'm trying to think if the Ravens used any other supplemental. Oh, man.
We don't do this anymore,
but it only went away a couple years ago.
Okay.
Hang on a second. List of NFL supplemental picks. There have been 46. The last because there also weren't players taken every year in the supplemental draft.
Bucs traded Steve Young to
the Josh Gordon famously was a supplemental draft pick. He was a second-round pick.
Okay.
The Ravens used it on Jarrett Gaither in 2007. He was a fifth-round pick in the supplemental draft. And feeling sluggish, unfocused,
more
or
of me.
not like. I don't know why there's more of me, but there was more of me.
the laptop.
The only time the Ravens ever used a supplemental draft pick was on Jarrett Gaither.
Okay.
Who else was a famous? Terrell Pryor was a supplemental draft pick because he had been suspended due to the tattoo scandal at Ohio State.
Right.
So he was not going to be able to play in the fall. So he said, okay, then I'll go ahead and go to the NFL. I mentioned Josh Gordon. He had been dismissed by Baylor because he failed a marijuana test. So he wasn't going to be able to play. He decided to go in the supplemental draft. That was typically the reason why you went into the supplemental draft, at least in the modern era, was because of issues like that. Why Steve Young went in the supplemental draft, I don't know. He's not listed as a supplemental pick. This is weird.
Okay, I was looking at his Wikipedia because I was like, what hints can I give you for Steve Young?
That was because if you had signed with a USFL team, you were no longer eligible to be drafted.
Gotcha.
Once you signed with the USFL team,
signed with the Express,
right? Then you had to go to the supplemental draft.
Got it. All right. Well, I had a fantasy-related tidbit, but I mean, we spent a lot of time on that.
Yes, this was interesting. This was interesting because it gave a history lesson about the supplemental draft.
Thank you for that.
Griffin
I
didn't know
appreciate
about. And apparently, this makes it even more in canon. They don't consider the 1984 supplemental draft to have been an actual supplemental draft because it was specifically for the USFL issue. Like it was its own.
Was the USFL like going under, or like what was?
The USFL failed.
Gotcha.
And all these players had to come back. It's a whole.
So it was either they got drafted or became free agents, or
I guess they either went in the supplemental draft or they were available for anybody to sign. I don't remember because I was 1 year old.
Sure.
So I'm the wrong person.
I'll ask Drew tomorrow.
To give all the details about it, but that is the reason for it. All right, very good. Let's get tubular. Here's what's coming up tonight, totally tubular-wise. Orioles do open up a series against the Pirates. Kyle Bradish is on the mound against Mike Burrows, 6:35 on Masson. Loyola Soccer takes on St. Francis, 6 o'clock on ESPN+. And the U.S. men's national team plays a friendly against Japan at 7:30 on TNT.
St. Mary's takes on, who are we playing? Duquesne.
There you go.
5 o'clock on ESPN+. Myself and Christian Taylor.
You
better be there.
The All-Star. The All-Stars. That's what they call it. Everything else, find at GlennClarkRadio.com. Highlights, non-sports-wise, not just reading the stuff that's happening.
Reading the stuff that's happening.
No.
Nate Bargatze and Martha Plimpton on Jimmy Kimmel.
Right, but we're just reading the stuff that's happening.
Sonia Sotomayor
Nope.
Eugene Levy.
No, we're not doing it.
On
You're
Colbert.
not
What are they doing?
You can pick one. This is what I'm telling you. I know you like the bit, We can pick one.
I don't get why
that's most random.
Why am I?
and
So
make
you're
it
allowed to
the
do
bit.
whatever you want. I
No,
can't.
I
have any
only
bits?
highlighted 3 of the things that were happening sports-wise because it was
the slow sports
the
day.
Orioles. Yes, if they're major sporting events, I'm going to mention them.
Right.
We're not just doing the
Mount
who's
St.
on.
Mary's and Loyola Soccer major sporting
We're,
events.
if they're local, you mentioned Mount St. Mary's. They're
So
not
I don't
even-
get to mention anything else now.
Well, you can if there's something
You're
relevant.
telling me there's no shtick we
You
can
have
do.
to pick relevant things, relevant, meaningful things.
You don't think it's relevant that Eugene Levy
Stop,
and Sonia
stop. You're just trying to do the same
Sotomayor
bit. Nope, you're
are
not going to
going
get
on
it
late
from me.
night together?
What is something relevant that's happening tonight?
You tell me, because what are they plugging? I don't know what they're plugging. You guys are supposed to tell me what they're plugging.
I can do your segment for you. If you need me to, I'll just do it. Tonight, apparently, is the season 5 premiere of Only Murders in the Building on Hulu. I didn't realize it was back. I had no idea.
So I was going to build up to that.
No. That's what you lead with.
No, you build up.
Lead with it,
Build.
and then the other thing is your throwaway to get some dumb shtick. Then you pick one of them that's most random. I would agree it'd be Sonia Sotomayor and Eugene Levy. That's the most random combination. That's the shtick. The other thing, we're not just reading who's on the late night shows. Nobody watches late night. I don't know if you heard. It's all going away.
Some people might.
No.
Somebody does.
It's dead.
Apparently, our president does.
Yeah, he apparently is a fan. Is there anything else?
There's a Thurgood Marshall documentary on PBS.
Okay.
That sounds interesting.
That is
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah.
Sure.
Nah.
What is Thirst Trap?
That's a documentary on Paramount. Paramount Plus documentaries are terrible.
Oh, okay. All right.
But some 21-year-old TikToker, he gets a bunch of older women. He does thirst traps on TikTok, and
Okay.
older women give him money and stuff.
Oh.
And then he was starting to get stalked, and he was like, I don't like this.
I'm going to kill my guidance counselor. I didn't know this was an option. All right. Thanks today to Joe Serpico, to Bo Smolka, to Jarrett Bell. We'll get it all up in the greatest hits section of the
Aspiration
tab at GlennClarkRadio.com. Tomorrow on the program, a rumor that Drew Forrester is coming back.
That is true.
That's
That is
unfortunate.
true. Chris Broussard will join us.
Chris Broussard, get his thoughts. We know he's become a Ravens fan in recent years. We'll get his thoughts on
We'll see
all
if
of these
he's
topics.
quit yet.
Yeah, right. We will talk to John Miller.
We will.
Apparently about being back in town this weekend, and also Ed Hoddle, Stevenson football coach. They got their season underway this weekend. Their first home game is this week. Thanks to everybody at PressBox, all of our great sponsors and partners, including Game Day Men's Health, Live Casino and Hotel Maryland, County Sports Zone, your local Toyota dealer, buyatoyota.com, the Maryland 5-Star, 1-800-GAMBLER, helpmygamblingproblem.org, Nick's Fish House, as well as the Costas Inn. Thanks to Griffin at Griffin_Bass. Follow us Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at Glenn Clark Radio. Have a great Tuesday evening. Go Birds. Duke sucks.